With U.S. attack options on the table and with its military assets in place, Washington may be heading towards talks with Iran and not war, at least for the moment. U.S. President Trump took note of Iran's threat of regional war, but said a deal was still an option for now. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is expected to arrive in Israel tomorrow for meetings on Iran with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports.
The United States and Iran have quietly informed each other that they are ready to enter negotiations aimed at diffusing the escalating crisis. Israeli media reports, quote, unnamed senior American officials saying President Donald Trump's public calls for a deal are genuine and not a deception ahead of a military strike. Mediators in Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar are now working to organize a meeting this week in Ankara between White House envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian officials. The diplomatic push comes as Iran's supreme leader warns a U.S. attack would spark a regional war. Trump, responding overnight, said he still hopes for a deal, but added if talks fail, we'll find out what comes next.
Sir, on Iran, the Supreme Leader today said that U.S. attack could spark a regional war. Do you have any response to that?
Why wouldn't he say that? Of course you can say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and then hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
Influential Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham spoke out against a deal between the U.S. and Iran, arguing that true peace in the Middle East would only be possible once the Iranian regime falls.
The biggest thing you could possibly ever do to the Mideast is take this regime down, and they're as weak as they've ever been since 1979. Mr. President, you can do it. I hope you will do it, and if you do it, this is Reagan bless.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu met overnight with IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, just hours after Zamir returned from high-level talks in Iran in Washington with U.S. defense and security officials. Defense Minister Israel Katz and Mossad Chief David Barnea also took part in the meeting. Hebrew media reports say the assessment emerging from the discussions is that the United States is now closer to a possible strike on Iran than it was just a week ago, though the scope and timing remain unclear. As diplomatic and military signals continue, the U.S. Navy confirmed that the American guided missile destroyer USS Delbert D. Black, which docked in Eilat on Friday, has now departed following a scheduled port visit. The U.S. Central Command said the visit underscored the strong U.S.-Israel maritime partnership and ongoing security cooperation in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aqaba. Despite talk of negotiations, concern about a sudden escalation remains high in Israel. Former IDF intelligence chief Amos Yadlin warned that Iran may act in ways that defy Western logic, urging the IDF to be prepared for surprise scenarios.
And moving on, the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt has officially reopened today for the first time since the Gaza war. The crossing had been closed for around 2 years. With us here to discuss this is ILTV's India Naftali. India, thank you so much for joining us today. What can you tell us about the opening?
Thank you, Lidar. Well, this is the first opening of the Rafah Crossing in nearly 2 years, since May of 2024. Now, this is the only crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Now, the problem with Israel is that this crossing has been a known smuggling route for Hamas for weapons and operatives. So this is a huge security risk Israel is going to take. But so far, this crossing will only be pedestrian only. No goods or aid will be flowing through this. There will be goods and aids flowing through other crossings. But in the Rafah crossing, it will solely be pedestrians. Now, what kind of pedestrians? Well, at this moment, it's going to be 50 medical patients a day who will be escorted by 2 people. This number could increase if the framework ends up working out in the coming days. But it looks like yesterday they ran tests and they were successful, and now they're beginning the openings right now.
And who's involved with the operation and with overseeing the security?
Absolutely. So Israel, Egypt, Palestinian security officers, and the European Union Border Assistance Mission. They will all be involved in this. But the bottom line is that Israel will maintain full security oversight. I will say that all the travelers that are coming through are approved by Egypt. Those names will be forwarded to Israel for the Shin Bet approval. And from there, they will pass through Israel's security through the IDF.
So tight security for now, understandably. Deni Avdija, thank you so much for joining us and for the update.
Thank you, Lidar.
And moving on, IDF says a terror operative was killed today after crossing the Gaza ceasefire line in the south and posing an immediate threat to Israeli troops. According to the military, several operatives crossed the so-called yellow line and approached soldiers from the 7th Armored Brigade in a suspicious and threatening manner. The IDF says troops identified the danger and opened fire to remove the threat, killing one of the operatives. Palestinian media reported that a man was killed earlier today in a drone strike near the Shakush area northwest of Rafah on the Israeli-controlled side of the ceasefire line. And amid the recent violence in Gaza, the senior envoy for the Board of Peace is criticizing Israeli airstrikes in Gaza of recent days. Nikolai Mladenov, the board's highest representative, said he is deeply concerned by events since Friday, including Hamas operatives emerging from a tunnel in Rafah and Israeli strikes that he said tragically also killed civilians. Mladenov warned the developments risk undermining hard-won progress under the UN-backed mandate for the Board of Peace and President Trump's plan to end the war. Mladenov called on all sides to show restraint and uphold the ceasefire as a new Palestinian administration prepares to take over governance from Hamas. And for over 2 years, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been demanding that neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority be in charge of post-war Gaza. Now, an option is emerging that could tick most of the boxes for Israel. Let's go to our correspondent Alec Pollard in Tel Aviv. What can you tell us?
Yes, Lidal, the United Arab Emirates are in advanced talks at the moment that have been going on for several weeks with the United States and Israel about managing the civilian aspects of the Gaza Strip. According to a report by Israel's Channel 12, the UAE are seeking to manage the civilian apparatus inside Gaza, and this includes the investment of billions of dollars immediately inside the Gaza Strip, with further billions to be poured in at a later date. The Emirates intend to take over the management of all markets and trade, but most notably, as part of the plan, they will send armed security forces to secure the logistics centers to be deployed in the Strip. Alongside the Emirati forces, private American security companies will also operate in Gaza. That was already tried before as part of the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, with partial success. The Emirates will buy all goods that will enter the Strip from Israel and use Israeli contractors for that purpose. Distribution centers will be upgraded to logistics centers from which the goods will be transferred to the private sector of Gaza. Hopefully, this will prevent Hamas and other armed groups from stealing and taxing the resources. A government-to-government agreement is currently being drafted, the details of which Israel still needs to approve. Israeli officials familiar with the details of the negotiations said the Emirates are offering to enter with all their might and become the civilian patron, adding that the Emirates are taking a risk and prepared to get between Hamas's legs, while stressing this measure will not replace the dismantling of Hamas and the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and only provide a civilian response of a moderate and productive force. For Israel, that has insisted that neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority take charge and run Gaza, this could be the best solution that it has. The question is, what is the motive here for Abu Dhabi to take part in such a risky venture, especially considering the fact that some type of confrontation with Hamas in Gaza seems very likely, and nobody in the Middle East wants to be seen as fighting or confronting Hamas and, by extension, the Palestinian cause.
Thank you, Alec, for the report. And joining us now with the latest in Gaza is Lieutenant Colonel Advocate Maurice Hirsch from the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
So the Rafah Crossing has officially opened. I mean, do you feel the security arrangements are adequate? Do you think the opening still poses a security threat to Israel?
So I think it very much depends on what the security precautions that are put in place at the crossing are. It depends on who exactly is going in, who is going out. I would suggest that to the government of the State of Israel that they open the Rafah Crossing for everyone for everyone apart from the ages of men between 15 and 45. Anyone who wants to leave should be invited to leave. And then coming in, obviously, there should be much more inspection, closer inspection. We know at the moment that the crossing is only open for people to come in and out, not yet for goods and commodities. And that's something that has to be really monitored to make sure that there are no more incidents of the smuggling of weapons that we've seen so much in the past.
Exactly, and we have to remember that the Rafah Crossing, which, as you mentioned, until October 7th was managed by Egypt, was essentially used as a smuggling route for weapons to Hamas. So how can Israel really ensure that this won't be the case again now that it's sort of handed over, at least partially, control to Egypt?
Well, so what we saw before the war was a situation where we had smuggling underground via the extensive tunnel network, and then smuggling overground through the Rafah crossing. We had, let's call them actors on the Egyptian side who had a financial incentive in helping Hamas rearm, re-establish themselves, build their force, and then go to war with Israel. That's something which we have to prevent at all costs. Again, maintaining the presence in the Philadelphia corridor is quite a necessary security provision. I would say it's a critical security provision. And then monitoring everything that comes through the crossing, whether it comes through the crossing on one side, checked by the Egyptians, everything that comes in has to be checked on the Israeli side as well before it then moves on into the areas of the Gaza Strip, which are still, unfortunately, controlled by Hamas. And that's also something that needs to be dealt with.
Now, we've officially transitioned into phase 2, but Hamas, of course, has so far not made any progress to disarm. What can we expect on this front? I mean, what are the next steps now, especially with Turkey and Qatar in the picture?
I think we're coming into a very dangerous part of this deal. Hamas is not going to disarm, even though it committed to disarm. It gave that commitment as part of the plan that President Trump presented. And now really they're trying to challenge that commitment, to roll it back, saying that they never, ever agreed to disarm. And then we're seeing, just in the last few days, some of the very much more problematic involvement of Qatar and Turkey, and even Nikolai Mladenov in this whole incident, where just over the weekend, where IDF forces were forced to deal with Hamas and Hamas terrorists, and the condemnations came out from Turkey, from Qatar, from Mladenov, all one-sided, all against Israel. These are people who are meant to ensure that Hamas meets their commitments and disarms, and yet they're going back to literally the 6th of October, protecting Hamas and attacking Israel.
Absolutely. When I heard Mladenov's comments, it really just sounded very, very similar to comments you would hear from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And an interesting development, though, that I do want to ask you about regarding the United Arab Emirates. They've now come forward saying that they might, take a larger part in post-war Gaza. Do you believe that their involvement increases the likelihood of success? And how does this, how would this change the bigger picture?
So I think the UAE has a critical part to play in the future of Gaza. What we've seen, obviously, the United Arab Emirates, part of the Abraham Accords, the fundamental change that we've seen just in their school curriculum over the last decade, possibly even a little bit more, their understanding of the Jewish presence in the area, the accepting of the Jewish presence in the area, and really basing it on the historical right of the Jewish people. So this is something which is critical. It's a critical stage in going forward, because really in Gaza you have, I would say, two different vectors that need to be dealt with. One is the intent, That's the ability of the terrorists to carry out the terrorist attacks and to carry on with their war. That's something which we have to deal with. We have to disarm them. We have to take away their weapons. But when we're talking about motivations, this is already a different story. And here we need to get into the whole issue of de-radicalizing, denazifying, and even to be more accurate, the Gaza Strip, changing the way that the next generations are educated. If we finish and we disarm Hamas, but we allow the PA school system, the Hamas curriculum, to keep on being taught in the schools, then we'll see more and more generations of hatred and of violence and of terrorism. If we can change that fundamental at its roots and change the education program in the Gaza Strip, obviously we don't need to make it necessarily Zionistic. We just need to teach the Gazans that it's not okay to murder Jews.
A lot of work yet to be done. Lieutenant Colonel Advocate Maurice Hirsch, thank you so much for joining us today and for your insights.
Thank you very much for having me.
Imagine earning your master's degree on top of Mount Carmel, where forest meets sea and where every day brings a new cultural, academic, and personal adventure. This is the multi-experience at U Haifa International. Here, students from around the world live and learn together in Israel's most culturally diverse city, meeting new people, discovering new perspectives, and shaping their own Israel experience.
There's people from different countries, from different religions and different languages. Somehow we are all very similar.
At U Haifa, academics meet real life. You don't just study, you experience Israel up close, explore Haifa's mountain ocean city life, and build global friendships that last a lifetime.
It's not just a degree, it's an experience. It opens your mind, your network, and your world.
U Haifa International. Master your mind, live your Israel experience. And on the northern front, the IDF conducted multiple attacks against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon overnight and today, targeting terror infrastructure and Hezbollah terrorists, including a senior engineering commander. This as Israel continues to act against ceasefire violations along the northern border. The IDF stresses that the presence of these weapons and sites constitutes a blatant breach of the ceasefire and says it will continue to act to prevent Hezbollah from rearming or reestablishing its positions near Israel's border.
The story of the Jewish people has never been about standing still. It's a story of moving forward, of taking responsibility, of protecting what matters, no matter the challenge. That story is still being written today, not with swords, but with stewardship of the land, with the rule of law, and with the determination to secure Israel's future. And on the front lines of that mission stands Regavim. Regavim is a public movement dedicated to defending Israel's national lands and natural resources in the field, in the courts, and in the public square. Through research, on-the-ground action, and legal advocacy, Regavim works to uphold the rule of law and to ensure that Israel can grow, thrive, and remain rooted in its homeland.
And in other news, the Knesset is today marking 60 years since the inauguration of its building, with a special open house celebration held on the Jewish holiday of Tu B'Shvat. More than 2,000 visitors are expected at Israel's parliament, including soldiers, police officers, Holocaust survivors, and students from schools across the country. The day's events included tree planting ceremonies in keeping with Tu B'Shvat tradition, a ceremonial honor guard march in the Knesset Plaza, and the raising of the national flag. Visitors toured the building, some guided by new Knesset robots, and received commemorative gift bags, a nod to the original 1966 inauguration. A special session was held in the plenum, along with a prayer service in the Knesset synagogue. Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana said the building symbolizes renewed Jewish sovereignty in 6 decades of parliamentary life, combining innovation with heritage in what he called the People's House. The celebrations also included artistic agricultural displays, including a 3-meter-tall figure of Zionist visionary Theodor Herzl made entirely of Israeli fruits and vegetables. And I'll take the opportunity to wish all of our viewers a happy Tu B'Shvat.
For more than 200 years, when Israel's most vulnerable needed help, Kolel Chabad was there. When families can't afford food, when seniors are alone, when children are struggling to survive, Kolel Chabad steps in with meals, essentials, and dignity. Right now, thousands of families across Israel are counting on that help. And you can make sure it reaches them. Your donation doesn't just give charity, it gives hope, it gives strength, it saves lives. Kolel Chabad, helping Israel one life at a time. Scan the QR code on your screen and give now.
And in other news, Israeli basketball player Deni Avdija has been selected as a Western Conference reserve player in the NBA All-Star Games of 2026. This is a huge milestone for Israeli sports, with fans across Israel already celebrating a dream realized. Let's go to our correspondent Devo Klein, who has the story. Devo?
That is right, Lidar. It is official. I can finally report to you guys that Deni Avdija, number 8, has been selected to play in the NBA All-Stars game. That means that Avdija is going to be the first ever Israeli to reach this historic milestone. Now, this is obviously big news for Avdija, the forward from the Portland Trail Blazers, who has been putting in an absolutely stellar season. He's averaging about 26 points per game, which is an incredible stat all on its own. But he was actually snubbed by the voters. He placed 7th overall in the voting for the Western Conference. But it was actually the coaches who selected Avdija to play as a reserves player in this year's NBA All-Stars game. This is obviously a huge milestone, also for Avdija, but also for the fans here in Israel, and in general, just seeing Israeli representation on the NBA stage. He is the first ever to do it, but don't take my word for it. Just take a listen to what Avdija said in the post interview.
And Deni, the All-Star, oh, that feels good to say, is here with me now. What was that moment like to find out with all of your teammates?
It was great. Being in a room with people that love you, and obviously I couldn't do it without my teammates and coaches and the whole crew that just been with me this season. Been amazing. There's a long season to go. I got to focus on the team and see how we get better as a group, but definitely as an individual accolade, that's amazing, and hopefully more to come.
So as you can see, you can definitely count on Avdija to keep things calm and collected. You can see he's very poised despite this incredible news that he's currently experiencing right now. And it's really awesome to see. It's awesome to see his personality on the court, off the court. And it's great to see him finally be recognized for his accomplishments, for his leadership. Like I said, he was selected by the coaches, which means that his potential has been recognized, noted, and now he's selected and he's reaping the benefits. So big news for the world of sports and basketball and Israeli representation on the NBA stage. Back to you, Lidar.
Thanks, Devo. Absolutely an historic moment for Israel in the NBA. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 13 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see rain showers alongside steady temperatures with highs of 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's at ILTV_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.